On Net Tonight, the panic over computer porn. Susan Ray searches for the truth behind the tabloid headlines. Rajan Datta discovers how architects are using computers to put Rubens in the best possible light. Plus our games review with Jules and the trials and tribulations of interacting with those awkward electronic devices.
Children get mind-boggling filth on their computers through one phone call, and they then spread it around like an epidemic.
Well, it's a new horror, and what has happened is that the new technology has outstripped the laws which are capable of dealing with obscenity.
Sex online.
Up in their bedrooms, away from their computer-illiterate parents, the nation's youth is being corrupted. According to politicians, newspapers and TV, the spectre of computer pornography is haunting Britain. They say any child with a computer, especially with a modem, can get access to the most loathsome pornography, and they say something must be done.
Dehumanized by high-tech pornography.
Computer pornography certainly helps to sell newspapers. But is it really a threat on the scale suggested? Or is it just the latest focus for a convenient moral panic?
Most children do have computers in their rooms at home, now, a growing number anyway, and their parents just think that little Johnny is doing his schoolwork. When little Johnny may be dialing in to some bulletin board or dialing into some computerized network which produces pornography down the line, which he can not only watch but can copy as easily as anything, of very high intensity and quality, and which may deprave and corrupt him.
However, as chair of the recent Home Affairs Select Committee into computer pornography, Ivan Lawrence was actually told that there was very little evidence for the existence of digital sleaze.
There appears, I think, from the memoranda that we have got from both the Home Office and the Crown Prosecution Service, that there is some vagueness about the prevalence of computer pornography.
The main research on computer pornography has been carried out by Vicky Merchant, whose report is due out tomorrow. Having canvassed a number of schools, she is convinced that computer pornography is a major problem.
Computers are addictive. Children spend long hours in front of computers, and so to be exposed for long hours at an early age to pornography is harmful to children. It includes extreme violence, torture, rape, and so on.
However, despite the recent fuss over computer pornography, some critics believe that the whole issue has been blown up out of all proportion.
I think there is a panic about computer pornography, which is spreading through staff rooms, newsrooms, and especially the corridors of Westminster. I think it amounts to a moral panic that's been booted up by the authorities.
People who don't like pornography in general are whipping up concern about children and pornography. People who are anxious about computers in general and sense that computers are taking over the world and that people can't control them and so on. Again, they're putting that onto children and saying children need protecting from these computers. And I think that parents who are justifiably anxious about their children are having these anxieties exaggerated and put onto computer pornography at the present time.
Well, what do you think about the research of Vicky Merchant?
Well, Vicky Merchant is kind of the pin-up of the panic mongers because her survey of head teachers is supposed to provide evidence of an epidemic of computer porn in the playground. But her notion of evidence consists of teachers reporting that pupils have told them that they know someone who has a disc with computer porn on it. I mean, if that's hard evidence, my name's Virtual Valerie.
My survey went to all mainstream schools in Britain, and the evidence which I'm using is teachers' perceptions of what they have in the school.
And how widespread is the problem, do you think?
Yes, well, it is present in many schools, more so in all-boys schools and mixed schools, very little in girls' schools.
Can you say how many?
Well, at the moment I can't, because I'm still in the middle of doing the fine points of the analysis.
A lot? A little?
Well, in many ways, the numbers, the exact numbers are insignificant. It's a bit like murder or any other issue. What's a lot of murders?
So, what are the different ways in which a child could get hold of computer pornography?
Floppy disk, maybe 100 sides of A4, the equivalent of a short novel, with great difficulty, 1 or 2 pictures. Still, nothing beyond that. On the networks, over an ordinary telephone line, getting hold of text, the equivalent of reading the columns in The Sun, is not too complicated. Getting hold of pictures, quite a lot more complicated. Getting hold of video, well nigh impossible. And you really need to know quite a lot. If a child can do that level of technology, you not only have the school child with extremely wealthy parents, I'd say we get that child on board and give it a degree straight away so it can do some serious research work.
Hardcore pornographic images are available online, but only from restricted bulletin board systems secured by passwords. To obtain a password, you have to pay for it with a credit card. Hardly a likely option for a young child.
Our only concern must be to protect our children. That is what really matters. It's a secondary concern whether we protect adults from doing the things that they may or may not want to do that may or may not be desirable. But I think everybody has agreed that what we do to protect our children is justifiable, even censorship.
It is against the backdrop of this moral panic that the authorities are eroding civil liberties and gaining more powers of control.
And we know that there is interactive computerized activities coming on. It's the latest computer development for games.
The Home Affairs Select Committee has recommended that police should be empowered to enter any bulletin boards that they choose without a warrant.
You press a button and the man turns with the gun, and if you can shoot him, he falls down dead, but if he doesn't, then he shoots you, or whatever it is. Interactive computerized activity, which can be used in a sexual context.
If you use a password to obstruct police entry, then that will be regarded as an aggravated offence. The British Computer Society advises teachers to think about banning students from bringing discs to school.
And then there is virtual reality, where in future you will be able to surround yourself with earphones and clothing and everything else that will make you feel that you are the rapist.
And various commentators insist that parents must keep a constant watch on their children's computer monitors. And meanwhile, presumably, social workers and police are on hand to monitor the parents.
That is terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying that children should not only be touched by this stuff, but that the stuff should actually be eating into their very beings because of the latest technological developments. And we've got to get our defences in now before it happens.
I mean, I think it all adds up to a network of surveillance. I think that the culture of conformity is coming to a terminal near you. And if cyberspace was ever an open frontier, I think the authorities are already in the business of closing it down and fitting it in to the taboo-ridden society that is so characteristic of Britain today.
London's recognised as having some of the finest examples of Georgian architecture going. In fact, you can just imagine the architect Robert Adam sitting in this square, sketching out his plans some 200 years ago. But what I wonder would he have made of the architect occupants of one of his own creations? Because inside number 37, this most definitive of 18th century terraces, they're using computer software to design buildings for the 21st century. The question Adam may well have posed is this the blueprint for future architecture, or is it merely design by numbers? In 1983, the French government commissioned the architect IMP to master plan the redesign of the Louvre Museum in Paris. They set a challenging brief for the team of architects and engineers responsible for creating the new galleries.
They wanted wonderful and flexible gallery spaces to hang the beginning of the French collection, which then went into another part of the museum to which this wing attached, and the whole of the Northern Paintings collection, which is an unbelievably valuable and fabulous collection of the Louvre, which used to be one of the better kept secrets at the Louvre. The curators were very, very adamant in requiring natural light, and yet they wanted to protect their paintings from light, so that's not an easy task.
We started off simply working on paper, doing drawings, but quickly moved into using scale models. One of the things we found, though, was that very small dimensional inaccuracy in the construction of these scale models could actually produce quite big variations in lighting performance of the skylight system. And at that stage, we recommended the use of some computer tools to help us be a bit more confident and a bit more accurate in our predictions of light entry and distribution within each of these galleries. Using the computer, our first interest is in the numerical output. We want to see where all the light is falling in the space. We want to check that the numbers are correct. But there is a secondary aspect to this where we can extend the computer image to produce a synthetic view of the space, to show the modelling of the architectural surfaces. We can see in a very visual way the way in which the light is entering and distributing itself in the space.
So this is the real-life Louvre, and this is the newly restored Richelieu wing, created out of the old Ministry of Finance building. Now up there on the top floor is the paintings department, housing some of the finest works of art that the Louvre has got. So Andy, how much do you think the computer model has worked? How happy are you with that?
We're very pleased with the results. The implementation of the design has turned out to be quite simple in reality. The three layers of the system, the glass above that keeps the rain out, the screen that cuts the sun on a good day, and then the final layer is the visual ceiling, the plaster blades that help direct light down onto each of the walls.
So no light is actually coming straight into or onto the paintings, is it?
Only some skylight. So on a cloudy day we get light from the sky directly onto the paintings, but the design is such that sunlight is always bounced around in the loft before it's allowed down into the painting space.
So who would be the hardest people to please with a project like this, you think?
Well, I suppose the most demanding of the people we had to deal with were the curators, because these paintings are really their career. They've lived with them for many years, and they're really demand that they are shown in the best light possible.
So with this kind of success, really, I mean, does that mean that you will become natural light specialists?
Yes, we're taking this forward now, our experiences here at the Louvre, and using it to design the lighting for museums elsewhere around the world. We're, for instance, using it in London at the moment for the Imperial War Museum. We've taken the next generation of software and using that to help us with the natural lighting there. It's about 5 years since we used the software for the Louvre to design the natural lighting there. That software was produced really in a very short period of time to fulfill a specific need, and things have moved on a great deal since then. We're now using a package that uses a ray tracing technique. On the basis of the knowledge of the colour and surface texture of each surface in the room, it can predict the colour and brightness of the surfaces that each ray has hit. But we're a step nearer creating a near photographic quality image that conveys to architects and to curators a little more about the feel of the space.
The only way to really know what a building is like is to be in the finished building and to walk in it in time and space and to smell it and to feel the way, to touch it, all of those things. And that's what we love about buildings. A computer model will only give you approximations, very inferior ones, of where you're going. And you have to make, as a designer, you try to make the jump with your imagination from what the tool is telling you and actually combine as much of the tools as possible. Don't think it's going to give you better architecture than 4,000 years ago. I think it just means we're arriving at the same things by different means.
Next in our weekly games review, Jules gets topsy-turvy with Theme Park for the PC. And still to come in the net, when you can talk to your computer, will you like what it says back?
Insufficient data.
I've got a pet tree called Ian, who does a good windsurf and a good basket weave. And on this particular day, Thursday, woke up late, ran for breakfast with a smidgen of egg. Friday! Enjoy the day for theme park! Taking after his brother, Ian likes theme parks. 2 weeks and 4 days later, and still on his day trip, Ian decides to buy one. Ian got bored of this and decided to pop home and say hi to Ross the Sponge. Ross was happy as he'd just designed a brand new video game called Theme Park. Have you ever played SimCity, he said. Adds a bit of fun, and that's what I've created. A simulated theme park. Like Ian, you can be big boss of your own theme park. Do you want a scary roller coaster ride, or do you want granny type? Should you provide an ice cream bar, or maybe one that sells hot dogs? You choose, it's totally up to you. This game's got everything, from the hassles of controlling staff wages to repairing worn-out rides, even organising security at the gates, as naughty people often try and come in. Because this game caters for nearly everything involved in running a theme park, there's a kiddie mode that will just let you create fun rides, without the hassles of money, staff being on strike, and shaking hands at board meetings. Anyway, Ian would have liked this game. Sadly, he's now a log flume. Nice one, Ian. For his tragic death, he gave the game, out of 10, a mega 9.23. I that wrong, didn't I? Try to, out of 10, this game. Gave this game out of 10, a mega.
There's a journalist, and she asks, what's the most important problem in your field today? The computer scientist says, the thermos flask. The journalist says, can you say more about that? The computer scientist says, well, it keeps the hot things hot, and it keeps the cold things cold. And the journalist says, so? And the computer scientist says, how does it know? It's a joke.
What is a joke? So why do we think it knows? There are 2 points of view to the way in which we communicate with information appliances such as the coffee maker. There's my point of view, and there's its point of view. And where we meet and communicate is called the interface. And this is the interface we use to set things like coffee to be made for us in the morning. This is all well and good in the case of simple interfaces like the microwave. It's quite easy to program when to defrost my bagel. So we can pretty much trust the machine to decide when to make ice. As the appliances we use become smarter, the communication between the two of us becomes much more difficult. For example, let's take the VCR, and I have this to communicate with the VCR. I can't even quite figure out how to program it.
If your computer had a personality...
Good morning.
What would it be?
Please insert the disc. Chapter 3.
But I don't need the disc Chapter 3. I'm already done with it.
Please insert the disc. Chapter 3.
What are you, stupid?
This will erase all the information that's on here.
I know that.
Saved.
Saved. The problem with this is that this is the do as I do model. The computer's completely dumb. It can only do exactly what I tell it to do. It's completely literal. It can trick you into thinking that it's actually trying to help you when the reality is it can really only stand in your way when it thinks you're doing something stupid, but in fact it's not thinking anything at all. If you ask it to do something like put something in a folder.
Placed in folder.
Or open a new file.
File opened.
Or empty the trash.
Are you sure you want to empty it?
Yeah, I'm sure, or I wouldn't have asked you to do it in the first place.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time you've asked me to do something and then changed your mind. Just don't expect to be able to get it back when I've done this.
Yeah, this is the kind of stuff you put up with.
Unable to execute command.
What's your problem?
Unable to execute command. Unable to execute command. Error type 63021. You have to guess the rest. It's a game.
I really don't like these games.
Oh, the application has unexpectedly quit.
Where's my document?
It went.
Where?
It went.
Where?
It won't do you any good. You've told me not to nag you. I didn't nag you. It wasn't saved.
How could the computer be more helpful?
I'm going to demonstrate a computer agent called Eager, which helps users with repetitive activities. Unlike some other programs which just wait for you to tell them what to do, Eager is much more active, and it looks for opportunities to help you out. In this example, I have a stack of mail messages, and I want to make a list of their subjects. So I copy the first subject and paste it into the list. And now I do the same thing for the second message. At this point, Eager pops up because it's detected the pattern in my actions, and it uses green highlighting to show what it expects me to do next. At this point, I'm confident that Eager knows what to do, so I click on it, and I tell it to finish the task. So with a system like Eager, it will be possible to get advice about how to use a program, and the system can help you learn about features that you didn't even know existed.
But for it to help like this, it has to have a way of getting our attention. So far, this is what you get from most computers.
Welcome to Mac Headroom.
Getting computers to generate speech is relatively easy.
I can speak any text that you write.
What we have here is Mac Headroom. It's a representation of an interface between the human, the user, and the intelligence within a computer. As computers become more intelligent, it seems that we need some kind of focus for a person's interaction, and a face that's animated, that can understand speech and that can speak back to you. It seems like a natural way to do that. We can change the face.
Hi. My goldfish died yesterday.
You might feel more relaxed if you have a cat up there looking at you.
Hi. Caroline's goldfish was absolutely delicious.
Let's see if we can get him to say that in a more angry voice.
She punished me for eating a stupid fish.
Speech recognition is another matter.
Your door is ajar.
Yes, I know. Maybe next time you could try and tell me something really useful, like when I lock the keys in the trunk.
You need to buy gas. My brakes need new shoes.
So it's actually possible for things like synthetic speech to sound too natural and too fluent, in which case you'd actually start having a conversation with them and attribute human qualities to them.
Your hair is a mess.
So it's actually possible for information appliances, especially speaking ones, to be too natural sounding or fluent. But a limited amount of speech recognition might actually be quite useful. If we were traveling Rome, for example, I might want to use my Newton travel planning and guiding. So you can scroll all around this map, but it's terribly difficult to do it while you're actually driving, so it'd be very helpful if I could actually speak to this.
Take the next left. It's the one-way street.
In a limited context, speech recognition can work.
So what we have here are a bunch of faces, and we can talk to any of them. Each face has a different voice associated with it. We synthesize a bunch of different voices, and they all have particular personalities. So let's talk first of all to Agnes.
Yes.
What kind of personal computer should I buy?
You'd better get one that washes dishes and hangs up clothes.
Victoria.
Yes.
Tell me the meaning of life.
Fast computers, loose hackers.
This system recognizes, but it doesn't understand. Change one word and it's lost. But here's how many ways we can say the same thing in the same 15 words. Over 7,000. Managers of programmers. Name all the managers of departments with programmers in them.
Robo-nerd.
Yes.
What is the meaning of life?
Does not compute.
I've seen more intelligence in a door.
Insufficient data.
If they no longer need keyboards, computers could be anywhere and everywhere.
So it appears at this point in time, people are willing to carry various appliances with themselves. Handheld computers, even mobile phones, and of course there's the old pager that tells us when we're receiving messages. However, really what we'd like is a world where the devices that I wore might actually do something useful. Imagine a pair of earrings that actually could whisper the name of people who you're talking to in a cocktail party.
That's Dan Quayle.
Another thing that would be nice is maybe be able to have a sleeve that displayed for me that I'm getting incoming fax. So the most important part, though, is the user must stay in control.
These coffee beans are stale.
You have 6 messages waiting.
So when it all becomes just too much for me, I can actually turn it off.
I still don't get it.
Coming up after the credits, NetCetera. Start your video now. Or for a printed NetCetera and details of the BBC Networking Club and other network services, send a stamped addressed envelope to this address. The Net, Programme 9, BSS, PO Box 7, London W3 6XJ. Next week the Net will be on Thursday at the different time of 8:30, when Benjamin Woolley will be creating his very own virtual world on a desktop. Tony Collins investigates the privatisation of government computer departments, and top designers show off their fashions for the future. That's at 8:30 next Thursday. And finally from the Net...
We're opening a cybercafe. It's a real cafe in Soho.
The Cybercafe?
You'll be able to come in, use terminals, have mail accounts, talk to your friends around the world, talk to other electronic cafes around the world. There are a lot of people out there who you never meet, who you always just meet on the net.
Just a happening place, really, a focal point for the electronic culture in this country.
We also want some humanity in this whole thing. We don't want it to be cold and distant and not connected to real people in the real world. So we want to bring people in and let them really chat to each other and enjoy the whole feeling of it. It's an exciting time.
On BBC One this Sunday morning, you can learn how to use your computer to bank and work from home. Computing for the Less Terrified is at 10:25.